So we would like to start, and the invitation is to come in. There's these chairs in front. We can do without chairs, so there are 4 chairs here in the first row. And yeah, welcome. We would like to start off with a minute of silence. Lily, can I invite you to just gong, and then after 1 minute gong again. So you just, with the gong, we'll go into silence, and let's just wait till everybody is settled. And Lily, you can decide when you want to release the silence. If it's 1 minute, Peter is saying 3 minutes. Lily, it's your call, yeah? Okay, so just for us to arrive, some silence. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to another general meeting. We'll come to the who and why and what in a minute, or maybe in 3. And the 3 of us, Uma and Elisa and I, will try to hold space today. And since that's new and exciting and different, we just want to take 3 minutes to share a bit with you why we're here and how we are here, the 3 of us. So just bear with us for not more than 4 minutes. So I'm going to start. And so I'm here today because it happened to me. It's not really that I said I want. It happened to me to be here today, and it happened to me to be here with these 2 friends, sisters. And I'm trying, I think my stance, what I would like to bring today through my presence and my actions is courage and connection. And it's been quite magic/crazy that yesterday, I think around 4 or 5, even still in the afternoon, it wasn't clear who would facilitate today. And so the fact that there's the 3 of us here today was really something that unfolded and wanted to happen. And for me, it fills me with a lot of joy and gratitude because it symbolizes something that I've been feeling the last weeks and months, that the only thing that needs to happen really is some kind of magic, some kind of crazy spark that is coming from beyond us all, and that enables us to work from the source of our diversity and our differences as one.
Thank you, Elvira. I'm very excited and curious to be here and surrounded by 2 beautiful women, Elvira and Uma. And why I said yes to us holding space today was I do believe that in this shaky time, there is really a chance for us to make a leap of consciousness, a leap into our togetherness, and persevere onto our path of human unity in a felt sense way. So, yeah, that's me.
What brought me in this room today is a beautiful call from Elisa yesterday afternoon. And I'm here for love and collaboration and compassion and deep sense of oneness which we hold as a family together. It has been visible in a different language, different tone of expression. And I hold that deeply in my heart. Very happy to be at this moment with you all.
Before we go any further, I would just like to impolitely interrupt because...
We are starting like that.
Would you give me a couple of minutes for a slightly type of invocation? Thank you for that. I was inspired by Krishna from last week and by Ankoli from one of the earlier meetings. What I have to say will be very offensive. I would say that if parental guidance, if you have any children here, please take them out immediately. So what I want to give to you, I love all this, but you know, before the entertainment starts, we should get down to something serious. Rage, rage, rage against the dying light. Rant, rant, rant against what you can't. Hey, baby, baby, baby. Maybe, baby. We're not going to procrastinate. We're not going to masturbate. We're going to collaborate. The time has come. The time has come. It's World War III, but we're still free. We're not all vaxxed. We're not all vexed. We're not all hexed. We are free. We are free. We have a dream. I have a dream. We've heard that before. May I check your Aadhaar card, please? You know, we are here in this time and it is weird. Let me just say, imagine all the people. I'm not the only one. Ah, 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 ah. So, the mother had a dream. We have a dream. We are the dream. We are the dream, and we have ice cream.
Okay. So we were thinking that probably today there would be some surprises. So that was surprise number one. We're gonna hand over in just a bit to whom? To you, Lata. And just before that, just ground framework as usual. Most of you know the rope. So there will be presentations, and Lata will tell you about what and who and why. And now I lost my thread. Right. In between the presentations, which are quite short and concise, we'll give 5 to 7 minutes for just clarifying questions about those presentations. So it would be great, unless something is really messing with your brain while somebody is presenting, please raise your hand and ask right then and there. But it would be great if you could just wait till after each presentation, and there will be a short time for clarifying questions. Big exercise for us Aurovillians. A question means something that starts with, I would like to know, or I'm curious about, not I think. So just as a little practice that we really collectively practice to ask questions when there's time for questions. And then at the end, there will be around half an hour-ish for I thinks and my opinion is, and maybe a bit of debate and discussion, and also question and answers. But I think my stance here, and there are my little flip charts helpers, is really to just, before you speak, just check in with yourself. Does your sentence start with something like, I'm curious to know, or I have a question, or could you tell me why? Or does your sentence start with something like, you know what, I want to share something. I have an opinion here. I want to say something. Everything is fine. But could we keep the second category for the end? And the first category more for in between? That's just my request. Lata. Yeah.
So one more GM, and we just had one GM last week, and I want to connect the thread over here that even last week there was a request to make a presentation, and with Prashant and Suhasini's presentation could not be loaded. It was a little longer. We didn't have time. So we have this presentation to see and really invite you to hold the space of respect and listening and see, hear what presenter has to say. And to connect the dot that it's a community process and there's a presentation happening, and this presentation can be part of the continuous process. Thank you.
First slide, yeah. So my role here is basically, is this better? stand up. Okay. So I'm going to try and, well, this is the agenda, or this is the overview for today. And I'm going to try and explain what each one of it is, even though the title should be self-evident, but why we decided to do the order in which we are presenting. So our story starts, well, story so far, I think most of the people know, so I won't go into any detail. But right after the Crown Walk, so we found out that that the working committee and TDC were in a conversation with Doshi also during the discussions on the Crown, and then Saturday, that was Friday or Thursday or something, then Saturday the Crown Walk happened. And Sunday we got a call from Mr. Doshi saying, you guys should go and present what we did, what you worked with us. So I think soon after that, Monday, Prashant approached the secretary to say that there is some work that we have done, we would like to present it to you. She said, yeah, very good, but we never got an appointment for a while. And but out of the blue, suddenly, one day, and in the meantime, a lot of things had happened. The different communities that were, or people that were around on the Crown were consulted, or they were, you know, there were a series of meetings. And then he got a call from the secretary's office, or her directly, I think, saying, can you come now? So luckily, he was just in the canteen there, so he walked over there. And she said, I want you to come up with a visioning the Crown exercise. I heard a lot about you, you know, and so I want you to do that. So anyway, long story short, he came back and said, that's what I've been asked to do. So a lot of voices that he listened to, but I think eventually it was decided that, you know, there were people who said, no, just because, you know, why should we go? Why should we present something? You know, all of that. Finally, it was decided that, okay, we would use this opportunity to present what we think should be done, you know, how planning should be done or what has been done before, and include all of that, and also do a little visioning about the Crown. So that was what was decided, and she gave 1 week to do that. So Tuesday she called her, the next Tuesday you had to be back to her office presenting it. Anyway, a bunch of us had worked together. We had worked with the communities that were affected. Whoever wanted to say anything had a say with, you know. And then we went back on Tuesday, a bunch of us, and to present. Long story short, it was supposed to be 1 hour, but we kind of got 10 minutes or something like that. And so we said, okay, that's how it is, because it was the presentation was, it started 30 minutes late. And anyway, long story short, it wasn't possible to present really what we wanted to present. So after that, many things have happened. And we thought, okay, we should present it in a GM, which is when, like Uma said, we approached them, but they were full with their presentations and their stuff. So we said, okay, we do another one just to present what we have. So now I'll just quickly go through what we have. So the second item here is what was done at that time. This was the 2008-2009 time frame. It has already been presented to the community in terms of an exhibition, but there are a lot of new people now, so it doesn't, you know, and I think Prashant will go through fast enough so that just the main points are hit. After that, and before we get to the Crown Corridor and the envisioning part that we had done, there's a little bit of thing on master plans, because we keep hearing that, you know, master plan, we have to show that we are doing the master plan and that we have to implement the master plan. It's been 50 years, what has been done? Nothing has been done. So we have to do the master plan. So, and although we know that even the Crown has been built more than 10 years ago, at least a part of it, and not really that much development has happened because of the Crown. Plus, even our population in the last 10 years or 20 years has grown slower than before. So it's not like building a road or building a bunch of buildings is going to spur development. That's not how it works, right? It's the people that make a city alive. So, and plus this whole master plan story also. Why master plan? What is a master plan? What it takes for a master plan to become a reality? Or what are the steps, intermediate steps between a master plan? Because master plan is just an intention. You say we want to build a city, and one of the non-negotiables of the city is that they have to have a membership. I mean, in the sense, not membership, but people have to become residents. They have to want to join the project. You know, there's a lot of, so master plan lays it all out. But the next few steps are going to be presented in that, so that we know how a master plan, from a time that a master plan happens to when a JCB goes out there, what all have to be done. So that's the in-between one. The fourth one, of course, I already said, it's the envisioning what can happen on the ground now, and what is anticipated and how. So timelines and what can happen now, that kind of stuff. Now, the fifth point is to bring all of us center stage in the Auroville planning. I mean, currently, I think we all feel, and that's why we jumped at the opportunity when the secretary called Prashant and said, I want you too. Suddenly we found that, okay, maybe we have a seat at the table. But everyone feels that they're not really a part of the planning and development. It's a handful of people, and they say that we are implementing, we know what to do, we are doing it. So this is basically talking about what the planning and development group's structure, or the TDC's structure, should be, why it was decided, how it was decided, and how to bring all of us as the community center stage and in the middle, in the center of planning, not in the periphery where the only participation we are able to do is dissent. Either agree or disagree, but not participating in anything. So that's where the fifth one is. And then after that, we are going to see that if we can move forward in some way, in a constructive way, so that it's not always, no, not this, no, but something positive. So that's the outline of what we are going to do today. So I think with that, I'll hand over the mic to Prashant.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. So during 2009 and 2010, soon around that time when Dr. Doshi became the governing board member, and then also later chairman of the TDC, he called a few of us. I think there was me, Lalit, Tejaswini, Meera at some point. Dhruv also was involved in that time, and we had several meetings with Mr. Doshi, and then we had worked with him. So we went through a logical way of how plan develops, and he said it's time to have a 5-year development plan by 2014. So that was the idea. So we did a lot of work with him, and this is what I'm going to try, if the slide. No? No? Okay. Yeah. So we went through series of planning processes, that what actually makes a planning, and there is human geography, there's physical geography, there's all these elements have to be taken into account. Landscapes, wherever you build, wherever you are, wherever you're living, are actually shaped by the natural forces. It's a climate, rainfall, closer to the coast, elevation. There are all these things that happen. Why is a rainforest and a desert is a desert? There are different ways, different reasons for that. And these are the forces that are shaping the landscapes, and the landscape where we live in is also shaped by certain forces. And for that, you have to understand the geology, topography, soils, slopes, how the water flows, hydrology, and even eventually, also look at the coastal area, climate, rainfall, temperatures, because that's where these are the givens. These are the givens. You can't change these things. Climate change happens on its own. because of human activities, but we can't do it right as a community. So I think you'll have to do it, Kshitij. Okay. It is on. Yeah. I think the distance is probably not doing it. So and then there is human activities that also have impact on landscapes, which is the demography, the roads we put in, the land zoning we do, the regional context. What we do also makes a difference. And then there is another context, which is basically policies that also have impact on landscapes. So somebody sitting in Delhi can make a policy and that can have impact on Western Ghats, for example, or in the coastal regulation zone or other things. So these are the different forces that are acting on the landscape. And we looked at all that in the Auroville context. So we looked at land use, we looked at land suitability, looked at zones, we looked at population, urban design guidelines, mobility, which is how we connect to the rest of the movements of the around us. And we also looked at development phasing, because things don't happen. We don't start building the city as we envision it when we have 50,000 people. It develops in phases. Then what are those phases? So I'll just go quickly over these slides, a context. So this is something that many people know, but many people also don't know, is that we are actually on a ridge over here. This is the ridge that goes from Usteri to Kaluvelli, and we are at this rest of the area is pretty flat, but we are at a height over here, and it's 55 meters above sea level. The highest point in Auroville is Deepanam School. It's 55 meters above sea level. So when you come up from ECR, you are actually climbing up 55 meters, which is quite a lot when you climb up this East Coast Road, Kulipalem Road. So I think that's something that we have to understand, that we are actually on top of a hill. Cyclists would feel it actually, yes, not the people on motorcycle. So then we are also, a lot of things are happening below us, which is underground, and that is this geology, which is layers underneath. Some of them hold water, some of them block water, some of them are actually aquifers, which we call them holding water. And then there's also superficial geology, which is what the geological formations that come to the surface, because layers are not always parallel, they are in different forms. So you dig a well over here, and this is the water holding, you have to dig all the way here. So these are the things that we have to understand, where our water is coming from and how the water flows and how these aquifers function. There's a whole lot of water movement going on. It's very slow, but it goes on. So that's something that we have to understand, that we are always, since we started, we have been depending on the groundwater, and that is something very unsustainable. So this is something that we need to look into in a longer term. And then there is groundwater recharge, because all the rainfall that comes down has to go, and it recharges only in certain areas. It doesn't happen everywhere. If it's a solid formation, the water won't flow through. It will flow through and then find a point and then go in from there. So these are the areas in Auroville around which are high percolation areas. This is quite outdated data set from 2006 now, but not much has changed. These things don't change. Geology doesn't change in centuries. So coming back to our topography, this is our larger bioregion. Look at all those beautiful eries around there, the lakes, the irrigation lakes. And then there is a watershed that we are part of, which is Kaluvelli. So that's the Auroville ridge here. So half the water in Auroville flows into all these tanks and then flows into Kaluvelli eventually, which is actually a 700 square kilometer watershed. It's quite a huge watershed. It goes all the way to Tindivanam and all these areas. And then half the water in Auroville flows eastwards, the Utility Canyon, the Portus Canyon, and that's how it flows. So we have to be aware of these things when we do these things. So this is the government. There are mapped watersheds. As you can see, these micro watersheds. Every watershed has a micro watershed. And these are the micro watersheds. You can see the ridge very clearly over here. There's some error in this part, but this is done with chain link fencing and chain link equipment and everything. So it takes a while before you can get to that. So, but today we have the possibility of doing these things digitally. You can actually remotely sense data. You can do differential GPS surveys, and you get much more accurate data. So this is actually Auroville circle. That's the green belt. This is the city area, and that's the green. That's a high point that you see over here, and that's the Deepanam School area. And that's just for the reference. I've put the crown section here, crown line over here. So that shows you that how the water flows in this side. This is the Kotokarai village, Eden Chowdi. And water on this side flows in a much more even way. It's because there's a lot less disturbance over there. So that's the kind of topography of Auroville is. And we look at the slopes. Where are the steep slopes? So not many areas are steep slopes. There's largely flat areas, and I'll show you when I get to the crown what these flat areas mean. There are some areas where there are steep slopes. it matters in areas such as Himalayas, other places where erosion happens, so we have to mitigate for that, all that stuff. But we don't have that serious. But yes, our canyons have to be protected with vegetation. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. So based on that topography, you can actually extract the watershed boundaries, which is where the water, if you are in certitude community, where will your water flow towards? If you are in courage, where will your water flow? So these are the watershed boundaries that we point here. That's the watershed boundary for Oro Dam. Any drop of water that falls in this, and that's the Solar Kitchen junction, just to give you a reference over here. That's the crown junction here. So all this water flows into Oro Dam, this flows into Pichandikulam, that flows into, these three flow into Utility Canyon. And then large part of this, which is all these water that flows in through the canyons, go into, after Irumbai they meet, and then eventually go into Kodur Tank and eventually to Kaliveli. So this is something also you can see comes from that ridge line that is over here somewhere. So this is something that you have to know which watershed you are in. And then, of course, there's a galaxy, which is a given, another one, which is, so we have geology, topography, soils, vegetation, and then this galaxy. And what we did with Mr. Doshi was, we put them all together and to see how the whole picture looks like. And this is what the picture looks like. So if you are trying to protect the green areas, the water boundaries, you have to have a buffer of vegetation. If you try to put the high percolation areas that are there, if you look at the green, tropical, dry, evergreen forest, restored forest, all those things put together, these are the areas. And then we also have the galaxy footprint overlaid on this. You know, that's what you see through that white areas is all the galaxy. So actually, somebody would look at this map and say, so where do we build? Do we have any place to build? So it's not that you can't build. It's a matter of understanding and mitigating what damages you would do. So it's not a question that you can't build here or you can't build here. What kind of land use you put there, what kind of densities you put there, what kind of, and if you have to put something high density in an environmental sensitive area, there are ways to mitigate it. And there are sometimes it's absolutely not right to put it there. So these are the things that when the planning actually starts, that's where the planning starts. So I'll stop here, and this is so Mr. Doshi's point was that you have a lot of this area which is actually non-controversial. You can actually agree to this. This area is buildable from environmental point of view. So as a community, his advice was to start from those points. So as you start working, you start with points that you agree on, don't start with points that you don't agree on, because then you are actually starting, it's a non-starter. So once there's something called confidence building measures in political science, where you work with people, you gain the confidence, and then you move on, and then hopefully that eventually resolves the other issues that you didn't think could be resolved. So that was his advice was on this. And I will come to the crown eventually how we start with this. And yeah, yours is next, Suhasini. So.
Yes, sorry. So now we have a short window for questions for clarification only. So if there are any 5 to 7 minutes, and I want to say also that Lily is our timekeeper, and she will gong after 2 minutes, and another gong after 3 minutes. But after 2 minutes, please wrap up your question, and if it can be shorter, even greater. Yes.
A few years ago, there was a group of people from Germany and UK. It's designer, and they came. They did an amazing work, and I'm curious about what's happened. You know, where is this work, and if you care about or not, if it's included on your program.
So this was done between 2009 and 2014, 2009 to 11, and then a little bit carried on in 2014. So yes, so this does not include that, but theirs was actually, if we were to revise this again, to go back and revise this. So what I'm presenting is something that we did almost 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago. So if we were to go back and go to this and update this thing, which we need to constantly do that, we would include everything else that has happened between then and now. Yeah. So.
Prashant, what is the reason that this has not been mentioned in the earlier presentation? And what is the outcome of the work you did? Has it any effect on today, or is it completely ignored?
Actually, I don't have an answer for that question, but what I can tell you is that this work is there. It was done under TDC. TDC actually funded this whole what to work with it with Mr. Doshi. That time Lalit was the member of TDC, and we were all working as he was the liaison person. So it was there. I think Saurav, you also you're part of TDC forever, so you were there. And so this work is there, and I think this is not something that is not included, but this is something that has been also not been ignored, I would say, because right now, I mean, it's difficult for me to answer in the sense that whether it's taken into account, because we are not looking at larger planning right now. What is happening right now is actually with Crown is something that I can show how this fits into the Crown story, but I think it's a different.
That has to be made. There is a DDP that has to be made, so that should be taken into consideration, DDP preparation. Okay, so.
Detailed development plan. Yeah. Okay, so next part is coming. We will explain all these terminologies which we want to simplify for everybody so everybody understands what. You wanted to say something?
I was just wanting to say that the current TDC is the best group to answer that question, whether all of this has been taken into account in what they are doing.
And is the TDC, are there some members from TDC? We could, is there? I think it's an interesting, yes? Can we know if they are members of TDC? No? Okay, so then we will continue. Any other, we close the question and we move on? Yeah, I hand it over to Swasini.
Okay, so दो ही तो slide हैं वो कर देगा. Okay, I'm going to just explain how the different steps in planning and what is done when. Because presently what we are looking at is that a perspective plan or the vision plan 2025 was done in 2001, and we have moved to the implementation plan, which is in the annual cycle. There's a whole lot of steps that are not being taken into account, and that's where a large part of our confusion comes in. So in India and in many places where we have, mostly in developing countries with green development, where we are not just tinkering with existing towns which are, few centuries old, and you're talking on a greenfield development. You start with a perspective plan or a vision plan. A perspective plan lays out a protocol that helps in policy making, setting directions, and laying out something which is on a time scale of 20 to 25 years. It says it'll have this, it'll do this is why we are doing it. And based on that, a land use plan is made. A land use plan takes into account several things. One, it takes into what Prashant has been presenting, which is the topography, the hydrogeology, and other things. It takes into account existing land use. So for example, in Auroville, the existing land use is the kind of settlements that already have been developed, but also the villages around us, and all other developments. And it looks at proposed land use by overlaying all these things and coming up with a timeline of how do we go from here to there, Once you have a land use plan, you have an urban strategic plan. An urban strategic plan basically lays out a skeleton based on which you keep building over years your infrastructure and other areas so that you have a balance between different parts of the development, between the economic sector and how social amenities are distributed based on population and other things. And this is then distilled into something which is called development controls and building bylaws. So if you would say, like, they're talking about a road of 6.7 meters as a crown, the carriageway. I'm not talking about the right-of-way. So normally a 6.7 meters right-of-way, carriageway would mean that the heights of the building on the either side would be dictated by the kind of road you have. Because between shading, sky view, the number of people coming out of the building, the number of people going into the building, what kind of activities and other things. So you need to come up with development controls. You can't have any kind of building next to each other or different kinds of activities next to each other, because either they don't collaborate or they're actually cancelling out the utility value for the residents. So this is done on a 20-25 year cycle, usually for towns and cities. And on a 5-year cycle, you take up what Saurav was talking about, which is a detailed development plan. Now, in a detailed development plan, what happens in a detailed development plan is you first identify your development priorities and the direction you want. So for the next 5 years, for example, in Auroville, I would say, if we look at our health sector, given the fact, the demographics of our population, how many people are between 0 and 20, and 20 and 60, and 60 and above, what do we need in terms of healthcare? What do we need in terms of health facilities? What do we need in terms of health fund? And the kind of human resources and capital resources that need to be invested. So from moving from a population of 3,400, let's say by next Saturday we want to be 10,000. So for the next 7,000, with the demographics, looking at the last 20 years, you get to know how many people will be in each age group or each age bin, and you identify your priorities. And this dictates your development policies and programs. Policies are something that are coordinated agreements between different agencies that develop, govern, and administer townships. And programs are long-term, they're not projects. Programs are actually saying, in the next 5 years, we would like to have, like they're talking about only e-vehicles moving at 15 kilometers an hour on the ground. That means our program will be in the next 5 years, all vehicles in this region will be progressively phased out, like we had the demonetization of the Prime Minister, and in 5 years, there'll be no vehicle which is not E, okay? So then, once you have the programs, then you prepare your detailed development plan. Only when you have a detailed development plan, you start making annual plan with budgets and the implementation plan. And with the implementation plan is when the JCBs come on site. So when you have a perspective plan and you want to get to the implementation plan of starting to lay the paver blocks and cutting the trees, you need to know why are you making a road, what kind of projects will go on side of the road, how many people will be using those projects, how are you going to be able to actually create the demographics that will make sure that the projects that are built are having enough footfall to maintain the activities. And then, of course, there's always monitoring and evaluation that's going on so that there's a feedback loop that is revising the perspective plan, revising the detailed development plan, and revising the annual plans. Nothing is fixed, usually. Can I have the next slide? So in this slide, if you see what has been done and what is going on in Auroville, it's quite interesting. So you have in the first box, the dream, the sketch of mother, the multiple concepts that led to the Galaxy Plan, the charter, and the report for funding to Ford Foundation. Now it's interesting that in 71, 72, they thought they would build the city in one go, and they would have the capital to do it in one go, which is interesting because, I mean, maybe it would have. But then in 99, there was a document prepared that was approved by the RA as a master plan. But based on different inputs, it was felt that it has to be restructured and reviewed to match the kind of language that bureaucrats and decision makers understand. And that was the Auroville Perspective Plan 2025. 3 years later, there was the Master Plan 2004 with Directions of Growth, which was published. We never refer to it, amazingly. Meanwhile, in 2007, with the push from Roger, L'Avenir de Auroville as the planning group was formed. And it had a mandate, and in which it talked about various aspects, and there's also what Roger had defined as the non-negotiables of the Galaxy was part of the mandate. But somewhere along the line, 2009, Dr. Doshi joined the governing board. The work that Prashant showed was taken up, and the Auroville Perspective Plan was gazetted. But there was some kind of issues of how people would work together in the planning group. There were kind of a dissonance within the planning group. And at that point, the governing board stepped in and formed the TDC with a standing order. And this standing order was the basis on which afterwards, from 2011 onwards, the TDC was functioning. And at the same time, there was a task force set up to find a statutory status for the township of Auroville under the state government. But meanwhile, after a few years of works being taken up based on the inputs of Doshi in 2014, the Auroville city area suitability analysis was done, which looked at the galaxy, the present land use, and what was happening based on the study that Prashant had shown. Then Auroville planning guidelines were made, and development priorities and directions of growth was taken up and completed for 21-26 for the next 5 years. And the proposed land use plan for Auroville based on the Auroville master plan, that's in progress. And the urban development guideline, urban design guidelines and development regulations, these are in progress. So you can see that that box actually is slowly inching towards what I showed in the first slide for the 5-year DDP. Meanwhile, there are other things that are not being done, which is the detailed development plan, which is dependent on that box, and the annual budgets and review of the Auroville perspective plan. This box is still to be taken up. But given the dissonance that was happening between the community and the members of the TDC, the RAD approved restructuring of the TDC before the appointment of a new team in 2017. Somewhere along the line, this approved restructuring did not actually manifest. We will go into that another time. And at this, I'm done. And I'll hand it over to Prashant after the question and answer session for the crown. Thank you. Okay.
Any question to Suhasini?
So I'm Gundolf. My question is, since I saw development polls in the early preparation from Roger, where they had 2 poles of growth, and where these poles of growth would come here in this graphic.
I plead complete ignorance to what you're asking. So I will like anybody else who knows anything about these polls answer this question. Yeah, but that, Sauro. Okay, you want to create more confusion? Welcome. Yeah.
Suhasini, you spoke about the master plan that was gazetted. Remember when you were, yeah, not now, but now I kind of miss it. Can you explain? Yeah, but wasn't there a difference between the gazetted one and the approved one of the community?
A request for everyone. We are having this meeting live as well, so people can watch outside, and it is going live for the community. So we really need you guys to wait for the microphone, so your questions can be recorded, and you can also watch it later on. It's a big request if you can wait for the microphone. Yeah, thank you.
So 1999 was the RA approved document. 2001 was a perspective plan that was sent to the Ministry of Urban Development. And 2010 is the Auroville perspective plan when it was gazetted. I hope that answers your question. Paulette, when we come to the discussion point, you can correct me, because I'm sure there are many things that I need to be corrected on.
No, there is, yeah, exactly. So, Paulette, you're here with a question, but first there is Kripa.
Paulette, just a second. The question is here. The question is here. Let's get back to it. Yeah? And
Okay, so I'll just step in and then I'll give the mic back. So, no, it was just a piece of information because the Auroville master plan, I hear a lot of reference to it. And I just wanted to remind everybody that how it was created. Because you see there is a gap between 1971 and 1999. And we were sweet dreamers, and everything was happening very organically until then. Meaning whoever wanted to sell their land, we would buy the land. And then one day we got quite struck with a huge piece of land that was bought. And then the Auroville master plan was created in the aim of protecting Auroville's land. So Fred, you might have some more information linked with that because it was done under Anupama's supervision, and it was done pretty quickly in the view of protecting the land of Auroville. Done quickly, meaning also to be reviewed and to be seen again whenever needed, but to give a protection of the earth and land of Auroville, not as to be referred to as the master plan constantly, as if everything was written in stone then already.
okay. So I feel there's a need to go a bit deeper into understanding the master plan and these differences. I hear you, Joel, asking what are the differences on a content level. Kripa, you just started explaining purpose. Where did it come from? Why was this master, what's the purpose of that master plan? But I would like to keep those questions alive for her at the end. Is that okay? And maybe, as Suhasini said, there is another session needed to actually unpack all these questions about the master plan document. Could be as well.
Please understand that we are giving you a bullet point context to set the stage for the two main presentations, which is the planning that was done with Mr. Doshi and the crown work that was done for Madam Secretary. So the question on the master plan, when it was done, validity, who did what, for when and whom, maybe we should have another GM next Friday. We could make it a Friday event, regular event. Okay?
So Asni, you can take one more question.
Yeah.
Alan.
Just a quick one, Suhasini. Thank you very much indeed for this. Quick question: do you feel we have the competence in the community at present to take all these steps? If not, what do you suggest we do?
I think if you look at what is read, these are the only things that are not yet done. So it's very much a question of perspective of how the community participates in its planning. If we want to sit in a room to give our opinions, yes, that can be participation. But if you want to sit in a room first to be informed on what it is all about, and then get the material together, distribute it, and then we come back and have an informed participation, I think a lot of what we are concerned about could go into the planning process. The problem is not that people don't know what they want. The problem is how do we organize it so that it is going in a manner that it is effective. I think we should, if there's nobody else, Paul. Carol.
One question, Suhasini, in the scheme you gave, can you go back to the previous picture, please? You are missing out on a standing order, that's a standing order of 2019.
Carol, as usual, you're impatient. It is coming in the fourth part.
Okay.
I promise you will get what you want this time.
Then I have, one last question before you cut me off. Why did the TDC, in their last Friday presentation, said that they based their work on the Auroville Master Plan 1999 as approved by the RA, when that has actually been officially sidelined by the Auroville Perspective Plan, actually called the Universal Master Plan, which has been gazetted?
Okay, this question will be answered by Sauro during the discussion point. Okay, I hand it over to Prashant.
Okay, so what we have here is we'll systematically go across around the crown, not physically but on a satellite imagery. So that's your Auroville city area. This is the green belt. That's the highway. Sorry. Okay. That's the highway, and then you have all these Parambuk lands in between, what you see highlighted, and that's the temple lands in between. So just to give you, I think everybody looks at this on Google Earth these days. 10 years, 15 years ago, it was not possible, but today it's quite, and you can see how much green work we have done. So when you zoom in closer, this is what you see in the city area. So as you see, this is actually an interpretation of this galaxy. I put that image purposely and in every slide so that you know the context. So that's what you see became a residential zone, which is this over here. This is what became the international zone, which is scattered buildings over here. And that's the industrial zone that was here. That's the cultural zone. It wraps around and the peace area and comes here, which is this cultural zone that comes in here. So that's the cultural zone. In between, we have 4 parks: Mahalakshmi, Mahakali, Mahasaraswati, and Maheshwari parks in between. And that's kind of thing that divides the zones. And if you look at the current parks like Revelation or Darkali, they were actually started at these points because the green also comes in here and it connects here. This green connects here, this green connects over here, this green comes all the way to here and ends over here. So this is how we started off. And as you can see that the outer ring road also, that's 2.5 kilometers, is this inside line. But in 2001 or 2, it was modified based on, because Revelation Forest was beautifully gone beyond this. So this circle was modified over here, and that's what it got pushed here. Then somewhere here, it was going over 4 houses in Samasti. So it was adjusted to shift inside and go on to match the road between Prarthana and Samasti. So it matches there. And this one goes right on top of the Kulipalem pond. So there was a little bulge given over here. Sorry. No, Kotakarai, sorry, Kotakarai. So this goes right over the pond in Kotakarai. So this was given a bulge over here. So this is how the modifications were made in 2001 or 2002. This was before I came here. So when I came here, I saw these bumps and some adjustments here and this bulge over here. So, and that yellow line that you see here is actually the crown circle here. And in this case, it corresponds to this here, which is not exactly a circle, but yeah, it close, yeah. So it has a little bulge on this side. The distance on this side is longer than this side if you really think. Just for information, there is no geometry in this. There's no angles or grids or curves that have been adjusted over here. This is done by eyeballing it. By eyeballing, I mean literally looking at if you overlay this with this, oh, okay, this line falls somewhere over here, so that's, somewhere over here, so that's how you get it, So that's why this, all this is, and if you look at the radial roads, if you can see, there are radial roads over here. These are the radial roads. They don't follow a particular curve. It's not following a line. Every particular angle, the distance, the angle at which it goes, they're all different. So it's basically eyeballing, and they have been extracted from these lines, trying to match out these lines over here. So it's not exactly a geometry that we are looking at, but it's extrapolation from that. And of course, there's no outer ring road in this, but we have it because from mobility point of view, we may need it. And so it was there, it's been there. So what we did was divided the crown into 8 sections based on the topography, water, what is happening over there on the ground, and where are we close to, socially close to village. So the first section goes from Arka to PTDC. The second one is from PTDC to the crossing of near Savitri Bhavan, Bharat Nivas Matra Mandir Road, then up to the edge of Darkali, then that's Darkali, and then Darkali to CSR Road, and then CSR Road to where the youth center, this road ends, and then this is the Bliss Forest and Youth Center, and that 8th section is Bliss Forest to Arka. And I have that image, so I'll keep pointing to where we are at any given point. So let's say, before we get there, we also know that, I was showing you the topography map. We also know that it's not flat. So this is actually a cross section of, if you actually go around here in this direction, so this is the solar kitchen junction, which comes here at 53 meters above sea level. So the crown actually, 53 meters from here, it drops down to 42 meters here. So it's about a drop of 11 meters. And then it, of course, goes, some areas are largely flat, and that areas are pretty much this area, because this is where the ridge of Auroville was going. Remember, I showed you the earlier topography map. So this area is largely at the same level between 52, 53 meters. But once you get on this side, it gets very, very different. And since this topography data, that's the Bharat Nivas Road, so which is this junction over here, and that's the Darkali area, which is over here, and that's the CSR Road, which is over here. So each section. So wherever you see these things sticking out, that's a error that's actually a disturbance in the data, we call it, because satellite imagery, it's taking the elevation from the remotely sensed data. So it takes the tree cover as higher elevation. So it's not really, so that's why I mentioned trees over there. So this is a tree clump near near center field, which is right here. Right here, yeah. Yeah, this is here. This one is Darkali, which is actually here. So actually this should go like this should go like this, and this should go like this. And this is the Bliss Forest area trees. So wherever you see this, it's called a disturbance, because this is not ground survey, this is remotely sensed data from the satellite. So that's where the disturbance is needed. And you have to be careful to identify that and not think that we are actually going up and down in a cycle. It's just not, it's not right. So just to clarify that. So this is the profile, and actually anybody can go and look at it in Google Earth. You can very easily draw a line, which is you draw this circle, and actually in Google Earth, there's something called a show profile, and it shows. And actually, interestingly, in live, if you move this cursor here, if you move your line here, this line moves from here wherever you are. So you know exactly where the point is. It's very interactive, very interesting. If you get a chance, you should do that. So, so let's look at the first section. So first section is from ARCA to PTDC, which is actually over here. Or PTDC to here, yeah. That's so in this area, what we have is, I'm going to read out because I have a lot of things in this. So it's largely, okay. Okay, let me see how I can do it. So what we have is, it's largely, as I mentioned earlier, at the same level. It's in the residential zone sector. So on the left, on the upper side, it's, okay, please, the red button. So residential zone near ARCA is the lowest density in residential zone. And as you move towards PTDC, it gets higher and higher density. Can you point to the galaxy and show where that is? So that's the low density on the right. This is low. And as you get towards center field, it gets even higher. So that's the first part. Then it's largely flat because it's parallel to the Auroville ridge. And then water from this area actually drains towards Sukhavati Canyon and goes towards Pichandikulam and that side. The present uses of this is a 3.9 meter wide road, which is largely used by slow and fast moving traffic. Has a narrow cycle path on the left, closer to along the library. And this generates noise and air pollution, unsafe for moving and crossing pedestrians and cyclists. Not very conducive for this section of residential zone because it has the collective facilities and residential complexes. So it has actually become a little bit of unsafe if you go really fast on that. If I get late for a meeting, I actually take that road. Sorry. So proposed land use, we need activities supporting the residential zone sector 1 and 2, which would eventually house about 5,000 residences. So can you show the residential sector 1 and 2? So that is sector 1 and 2, yeah, which is where largely our population lives. And I'll come to the mobility part later. There's a map that we have, which we tried to work during 2014. So what we have here is we can have things like shopping, coffee shop, bakery, theater, interaction, outdoor, semi-outdoor spaces. And that's the plazas that you need along that, especially in areas where in the perspective 2025 plan, these are listed activities also, the same thing, we have taken it from there. So that's what the proposed uses are for each. So basically each Crown, when it passes through each section, it is supposed to serve that section, that zone, whether it passes through residential, industrial, international. So and we'll come to that. And so what we need immediately in this is to divert the passing traffic, which is going from here right now. And I'll show you a map towards the end how that can be achieved. Basically, we need the traffic should not go on this road, should actually be diverted on this side, and there's a reason for that. I'll come to that. And that will actually, so this section should be used only for people coming to the residential area, or somebody for delivery or meeting or going to school. I think that's where it should pretty much end, that section. And then we need to have innovative designs to slow down the traffic through well-designed pedestrian plazas, and then move away from the 16.7 right of meter, 16.7 30 meters right of way street cross sections. In fact, if you look at the Galaxy picture, it actually has buildings crossing over. It's a very built space. It's not really a white space that opens. Otherwise, you will have a slice of Galaxy middle, and this one got separated out. So, design shaded areas, parkings, pathways, and I think that's the need of that time. And the mobility plan for the residential zone area that further reduces the motorized traffic, as that's what I mentioned. So, can you go to the next slide? So that's pretty much what we need in that place. Go to the next slide. No, back down. And this is exactly what I spoke up. No, can you go back? So this is exactly what I spoke from this slide. So don't worry reading about it. I'm going to put this whole document on the net. I'll share it with you. It will have maps and these text over there for you to look at it. So you can look at it at your pleasure later on. So go to the next one. So this is what we kind of think of, what we want, where pedestrians are, here's a picture on the right side, when you made a street pedestrian, what happens to it. There are segregated cycle paths, vehicle paths. This was on the lower picture, was actually a wide road. Now it's only for emergency vehicles, so it's only single lane over there. Can you go to next? Just click on one more. So this is actually an experiment in Chennai. Believe it or not, under the Smart City program, they actually created pedestrian plazas because they realized that most people who were coming there were actually walking through, parking the car, and then they were actually walking. And there was not much space to walk around because you go to Pondi Bazaar, you go to these T Nagar crowded places, people are parking in one place and they were just walking around. So, I think that is something that we need to look at. Go to the next one. Go to the next. And actually, what actually needs to be done is what is actually I've seen in the West quite a lot, is that the cars actually stop for the pedestrian, they stop for cycles. The motorized vehicle actually stop for that. I know it's a dream, but I think there's no harm in dreaming. So that they give and actually they use the right-of-way word over here. The motorized vehicles give right-of-way. Pedestrians and cyclists actually have right-of-way. That's how. As soon as a pedestrian steps on the street, all motorized vehicles should stop. That's how we would like to see that. So it's actually, this is a town planner from Vancouver City who actually came up with this idea that we need to redefine the role of cars. I think the vehicles need to, and I think that's what we need to be aware of. I'll go next. I'm running out of time.
10 minutes. But what I also want to say to everyone is that with each section, he's going to talk about what is the context, within which it is happening, what are the present uses, what are the proposed uses as per master plan, what is the timeline. So
but it's not likely to be developed in the near future. The paved road, which is at this stretch, is actually not needed at all at this point, because there is already a road that goes from Solar Kitchen. Can you point to the road to this? Yeah, that road. Actually, it is just parallel to that road, and there is no traffic jam on that road. There is no people getting accidents over there, which is because this waiting or anything happening there. So actually, you don't need a paved road. What would be nice to have a cycle path, because the cyclists actually go on the other road, they go all along that road, and at night, or maybe, it may not be the right, and even people have to walk on that road when they actually are walking. They want to walk on the paved area. So this would be a nice way to get to Visitor Center, Savitri Bhavan. You're coming for a meeting in Unity Pavilion. This would be a very nice way to get to. So a meandering cycle path is what should happen there right now. Some stopping points in the green areas with natural seating, furnitures made out of natural material only, and actually we could use this thing to access the Oro Dam for educational purposes. There are 3 kindergartens in this area, and they should be taking children regularly to this part, to this Oro Dam area, which should be developed as some kind of a ecological park or something which needs to be there. So long term is what I feel seriously needs to be done, and I did mention that to the secretary, is that this high density needs to be thought through again, because this is the only live water body in Auroville, and putting a high density line of forces over there is something that we need to think about, and that's a long-term issue. Maybe we'll find a way to protect that and also still achieve that density. Maybe we could do that. So that's the same text that you saw. So these are the different things that, you can have some paved cycle paths which are lit up, and, at night you can go on that, so you don't run into a stone or mulu or something. This is actually from a desert area, so you need these kind of things, so probably not the best for example for Auroville, but I just thought that it was a good idea to have something to have in between. And then, of course, the shaded paths is something that would be the ideal for this. I just did one more extra slide on this just for Oro Dam. Yes, go ahead. So that's the Oro Dam a week ago, 10 days ago. That's how much water it had, and this is not even the rainy season. So we would like to see some kind of a park developed around that place, maybe some areas where people can come and sit, and whatever you want to, cyclists can stop, or they can go do the round around it. I mean, these are things that a landscape architect can just prepare these designs with some right person who can tell the right trees and everything. It can be very well designed, and it can be a nice place to be. Go next. So this is the international zone, which is section 3. Go back. Yeah. So this is from the Savitribham junction to the language lab. Yeah. So in this area, what we have is actually that's where it starts dropping. From 47 meters, it goes down to 43 meters over there. So that's where if you remember the profile, it starts dropping over there. Those Parambuk lands that you see crossing are actually the canyons. Those are the canyons that are coming through. Some canyons are mixed, the Vandipade and there's Odaipade. So there's canyons are sometimes for water and sometimes for road. So this area is something that definitely it's mostly used by the villagers coming from Bharatipuram and Kotakarai, and coming into Auroville to work, or passing through that and then going on that road towards, can you point to that? Can you point to Bharatipuram? Bharatipuram is just to the upper left corner. That's Bharatipuram, Kotakarai. Then you come from that road, come from that road. Yeah, and then you come on this, yeah, come there, come down. No, down, yeah. And then you get to that Bharat Nivas road, you go towards right. That's the triangle of that archaeological park, and then from there you get on to Solo Kitchen and then Certitude, and then go to Kulepalem or ECR or wherever you want to go. So that's a large traffic, and traffic coming from there to work. It's also used by people coming for meetings to Unity Pavilion and other Savitri Bhavan and other places. Present use includes several institutional buildings over there, which is Savitri Bhavan, Unity Pavilion, Language Lab. Outside the crown, which is on the west side, this side is the Bharat Nivas campus. We all know that. And then there are further down, if you go, it's on the village settlements. This would be, so this is something, as I mentioned earlier, each zone has a crown section. So this should be developed based on maybe a plaza linking the 3 institutional buildings, a good parking space, organized parking space for cycles and for now motorcycles, and eventually maybe for e-vehicles. So again, a plaza connecting the 2. Right now we have these individual buildings, and we need to look at how these can be connected and made useful. When you are in the middle of a meeting, or you come early for a meeting, you meet up somebody. One thing that Mr. Doshi mentioned always, that if you want to meet a person in Auroville, what do you tell them? Where do you meet? If you don't want to meet at home. I said, I can only think of 2 places, La Terrace and Visitor Center. So he said, that's what you need, more spaces where you can actually stop and meet and somebody, I think these are the things that outdoor landscapes we need to design. So, and one of the questions that was put to him was, oh, then it will be used by other people also from outside, Pondi, other people will also come and hang out there. He said, yes, but then you know where they're hanging out, You know where they are. Otherwise, they're not going into the bushes and, waiting there. So then you know where to put the trash cans, you know where to do. So I think it's important to design in a way that to anticipate and do the right thing. So one of the things that was mentioned in this was that plot you see over there, opposite Language Lab. Yeah, that plot. That big plot is the Auroville land. And at some point, Kirit had proposed the Siru complex over there, if I'm not mistaken. And that was something that we probably could be a pollination between Auroville, India and the world, and at an interface between. 99, it was that plot just next to that arrow. Yeah. So, shall we go to the next? Hey, next. Okay, next one's fast. So again, this text, it will be there on the net over the weekend, and I'll share the link with everybody. So this one, I feel, is probably one of the most important ones, well, according to me, because this is the place where large part of the water of Auroville flows out in this portion. Remember, I showed you that 3-4 different watersheds earlier, the micro watersheds. This is where most of the Auroville water from the crown area actually flows out. So this is between two canyons, that is this Parambuk land and that Parambuk land. And it has actually started in about 50 acres of land. If any city that has a 50 acres of green space, they would say, wow, they would actually proudly say that, like Central Park in New York or Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. These are the parks. And it drains more than 60% of the water from the crown, and it's all captured there. This is quite present land use. It's regenerated forested land, water conservation efforts, groundwater recharge areas. They're all series of check dams, bunding, you name it, it's all there. Very little water flows out from there. Only in heavy rains the water flows out, right? I saw Anis somewhere there. Yeah, hi. So that is something that I don't think most of our people in Auroville, we appreciate this. In outside world, these people would be given Green Heroes Award and all kinds of things. But here we throw things at them. So I think this is something. But there is also a very serious social problem here. This area actually, Kottakarai is right next to it. Kottakarai is right there. And that actually has, if I read the list of things that happen over there, alcohol picnics, drug peddling, prostitution, timber theft, garbage dumping, and various forms of harassment. I heard somebody ask that question in last, I think it was Ashwini. Are you there? Yeah, you asked that question, yes. That is a very serious problem. People ask, why is Darkali fenced? There's a reason for that. It's completely fenced because otherwise that place would be a massive garbage dump, maybe open defecation, I don't know, could be. So I think there is something, so it's not very easy to manage that place. Although in the last, I think what it has right now is a regenerated forest over here, a series of check dams. I'll show pictures of that. But this part, on the west part, is actually a fitness path over there. And people may complain that why it's not open, because there's a reason why it's not open, again, as I mentioned. So I think that is something that, but it's there in the evening, this one person stands there, and this is all efforts by these people. So I think this is some area which actually I would not recommend opening from either side. It should be a dead end, actually. It should be a dead end here, and it should continue on there. And few years ago, I remember, I don't remember which year was that, there was a cycle path. We tried to push a cycle path through this, but eventually TDC agreed after looking at the condition that the cycle path would go around Darkali. And that cycle path was put in, we moved the fence in, and eventually it was abandoned because nobody used it. But it was one of the effort to complete the crown, okay, we'll give a little bulge over there, but nobody used it, and major garbage dumping happened, and I think eventually it was removed, right? It was removed? Okay. Yeah, it's become a big garbage dump. So I think that's something that we need to look at. But yes, cycle paths should be there at some point, but maybe it's going to connect from somewhere else. But I don't think, unless we actually, and that's actually a design challenge for all of us, is how do we interface our city, which is going to be a experimental modern city, how do we interface that with the village? So we have a line of force, I didn't show it earlier, we have a line of force in residential zone that starts from near Matri Mandir, the longest one, and ends right next to Eden Chowdi village, next to houses, hutments actually. And at that point, that line of force is 18 stories high. So how does it interface with the village? I think that's a design challenge. None of this, but we don't have to be put down by this challenge, because none of the cities in the world have managed to address this. Delhi, when it expands, it takes up the villages. Bombay, when it expands, takes the villages, but it has never been a smooth way, a perfect way of actually how these villages are integrated. There's land mafia that comes in, the panchayat guys make money, you know, the whole kind of things, and then there's a Lal Dora thing in Delhi, you know, there's a whole kind of things people have experimented, but none of them have been successful in actually harmoniously integrate villages in expanding cities, I think something. So, yes. Okay, okay. Okay. So this is what the fitness track is like, and that these are the water harvesting things. I think some art people can come and do some rock art over here. I think these are some of the works that done over here. I think all of us should go and visit this place. I would say this is something that, and we need to figure out how to protect this. Okay, go next.
How many sections? Prashant only did 3 sections. There are 5 more sections.
No.
So shall we just? Okay, he did 4. No, the option is either he finishes in fast, or
Let's get to the fast. Let's get to the other ones. Only one is really.
Or we drop this here because he's going to post it on the net anyway. Whatever the choice is.
Okay, I'll try to go fast. Okay, so next one is from Darkali, edge of Darkali to the CSR road. Actually, we can't do much over there because there are few plots that we don't own, and actually at this point I'd have no idea. But that's where the road again starts rising up. It goes there, and that point this is part of the industrial zone. So this is again an interface, as the master plan says. This should be the area for hostels, dormitories, guest houses, for whatever the international zone needs are. That's where the interaction space is. And there's a canyon that goes through here, which is critical again, which is we call it Angad's Canyon, I think. So that's the canyon, and that brings actually the water from the town hall and other areas. Yeah, go next. I don't have any pictures for this because we have no idea how to develop this. This will quite a lot depend on how the industrial zone actually gets developed. I think there are a couple of places where international zone, industrial zone, and the cultural zone, it all depends on how those zones develop, and the master plan of that crown area would be dependent on how it goes. Yeah, go next. So again, this I'll post it. So this is the section between where the road is actually already built. On the south side, which is inside, is actually the extension of the green bliss forest, and then on the north side is the Revelation. So that's the edge of the international zone almost, and then that green you see is the Mahakali Park. Yeah. So that's the Sway Dam area. Is that correct? Okay. So yeah. So this is something that again, we can do some development along the road and what we can want to do, but I think we need to respect that there are greens on both sides. Can you go next? Again, I'll post this text. We have, and this is the green area, which is the Bliss and the Bliss Forest. Yeah. Again, this is part of that Mahakali Park. Youth Center. Yeah. Exactly, Youth Center Bliss area, yeah. So Youth Center is there. So, I mean, it's quite sad to see that a lot of it is already, some part is already cleared, but this is something that we look at as Thank you. So this is again about 20 acres of restored tropical evergreen forest, and experts can tell us what the species are there and why they're important. But this is something that we need to think about, that it's right next to the schools. And what we can actually do here is have an interpretation center where people can learn about, kids can learn about trees and walk through the forest, and then eventually we should probably have something called Auroville Center for Ecological Studies or something where researchers can collaborate and happen over there. This is also should be a cycle path as the way it is. Just like for Revelation, we push the outer ring road by almost 120 meters. I don't see any reason why this should not be adjusted. I think that's something that we should think about. And again, this has the very interaction spaces. Youth center is, we all know that it's one of the living places for where the youth, from not just from Auroville but from outside, and even other people have it. It's quite a lot of active place. So this area, my personal opinion, should be left green and not even infrastructure line should go there because there's already a possibility of alternative there. If that other possibility didn't exist, then yes, of course, we had no choice. That's what I said, that if you can go through environmentally sensitive areas, mitigate the measure where you can plan over there. If the mitigation is not possible, then it's gone, yeah. Yeah, next. Next, yeah. So this is again the youth center place description, and I've talked about educational schools and educational programs with children. Go next. So these are some of the things that that's in Chandigarh, the Sukna Lake, which Le Corbusier planned. He planned it in such a way that it does not obstruct the view of the lake. So the interpretation center is actually sunk in the ground. You don't see it. Those are some places where you have classes, and then that's the then you can put some signboards for trees, what grows there, what doesn't grow there. We have a Chandigarh example. So yeah, go next. Go next. And the last section is the cultural zone. Again, this has to be planned with how the cultural zone comes up. It has the Kalabhumi and the artist studios, and again, this section is largely at a higher elevation because from here onwards, all the way until Solar Kitchen, back to Solar Kitchen, it's pretty much at the same level. And I think that's something that we need to look at. Inside is the cycle paths and the several private lands. That's at orange is the temple land. The road weaves around in and out of the private lands. On the right side, again, the playgrounds, play areas. This area is again the green area. That's the Mahalakshmi Park. Okay, so that's the Mahalakshmi Park, and that comes in. So cultural zone actually comes in and actually comes around and wraps around and goes all the way up to the kindergarten. So if you look at the master plan, it's on that side over there. Can you point to that? Okay. So, so that's where I end actually. I think I've covered most of it. Can you go next? There are a few things that I just wanted to mention. Yeah, go next. Yeah. Sorry?
No, just conclude, Prashant.
So just to mention, this is the regional mobility plan of Auroville. I think this is actually a TDC map. So it has all these different points from where you can come to Auroville. This shows all the tar roads, the mud roads, the different access points, the highways. Can you go next? So when you come back inside Auroville, this is what I was talking about. Which is we worked with Mr. Doshi on this because we specifically mentioned to him that now that this section of the crown is built, this is being more used than So he said, okay, let's look out where our activities are. So where are our activities? This is the Solar Kitchen area, PTDC, where people come. This is a visitor center. That's the international zone, Savitri Bhavan and area. Then this is a town hall. Then this is CSR, and then there is industrial zone. So these are the places where people from outside also come, and whereas this is where largely our population lives in the city area. We do have Courage and other places. We do have people living in Yantra and other places, but largely our city area population lives in this area, all the way from Dana to Certitude here and everything in between. So we do have so this is what we want, a quietest place, whereas now this has become the most used place. So what he was suggesting was that think of what you can block, what you can move, what you can do around. So what we came up with was that we actually consider blocking this path from Grace Junction, Surrender end of up to this town hall. So once you block this, then people who are going on this road have to go all the way up and then come back to town hall. And I think that will actually directly change the traffic pattern and people will start using this. So that's the first option thing. So people from residential area will have to go there. They will have to go around if they're going on motorcycle, but they can also walk or cycle around, and that's the other option. Another thing was, which is quite...
Prashant, I'm super sorry. I think I really would like time for questions there. Okay. Suhasini still, and I think from as a spectator, you've really given a lot of good examples of, the thinking. Is there anything very specific?
Last 2 lines.
Okay.
So this is something that another one which is very obvious was, why is the cycle path going away from Matri Mandir? Why is cycle path going away from Matri Mandir, whereas the motorized road is right next to Matri Mandir fence? So that should start flipping around. So basically what we are trying to do here is move the traffic slowly away from outside, and then eventually maybe we have some ways to enter from this side, and there's the Pratna road here, people can come in from that side. So but doing these few things, there was a time when we actually blocked this path, and I was in TDC that time when we blocked the path from Prarthana to Luminosity to Swayam. That portion we closed, and that made a big difference over here. And I think similarly, if we close certain areas, I think our motorized traffic will go out. If it only adds a couple of more minutes if you go around and come back, but I think that is something that we need to think about and community has to decide. But eventually what the aim should be that we slowly move traffic outside, and that's how we have to do it in phases. It won't happen overnight. Yeah, and I think the last slide, this was my favorite place. I spent time over there, but this is what I imagine the crown to be a loop. In this case, it's a linear loop. This is an arboretum at University of California at Davis. I spent 5 years there, and this is a 3.5-mile walk. Very close to 4.3 or a little over our thing, but it's a linear walk, and that's something that, anyway, I thought that I should give it an example of right on the campus. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Prashant. I really think you need at one point to have this presentation with an hour. Like you said, it actually should. I think it deserves that. So just sorry to cut you short. No. Our suggestion from the facilitator side was to skip the questions right now. Let Suhasini finish and then try to do everything in one go. Okay, fine. Then can I just 1 second? Because I would like to honor time. And so we're running late. We started 10 minutes late. Is it okay to go till 6:40? And then, so this would be the 10 minutes we started late. We just put them longer. Is that okay? Okay. So, Raman.
Can you go back? Just go one slide back. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
So we actually spent quite a lot of time on this, and with the Doshi, we actually did look at it. But yeah, go ahead. No, I'm just giving the background, sir.
Yeah. See, when we are talking about water and parks, you see within our area there is big water bodies within our green belt. If we can concentrate, that's even a greater thing we could talk about. And being Auroville an international town, I don't think so. It's a big, because these are all getting encouraged. Slowly we will lose this water body. That's one thing. And second thing is, see, I managed to run in 15 minutes from my school up to Sincerity to watch the inauguration of Auroville. It's not that abstraction or like that, but it can be said. That is number 2. Number 3 is, there were no bunding. We don't talk about the field. We don't talk about the villages lived here. Villages were living here for many centuries and managed to keep up their life. See, where is Malarakoli, Tena, Kambu, Tore, and whatnot. But unfortunately, they did not have the knowledge what you have today. But this all have to be collected from these people who are still alive and have the knowledge, because they will just be gone soon. Yeah. Thank you.
You touched on a very important point. I asked this to a professor, what we do in areas where we don't have data. He said, no, there's no place in the world where there's no data. If there's no data on the paper or computer, doesn't mean that it's there in people's head. Because people's relationship with geography, where they have lived for generations. I come from a generation where I move around quite a lot, but there are people who have lived in the place for generations, and they have a relationship with geography. They can understand a lot more things than actually I can see from a satellite imagery or a digital data. Yes, that has to be harnessed, and it's one of the big things that we do in conservation, where we actually take traditional knowledge and harness that to, because otherwise it can be lost. Yes, I agree with you. And it should be taken, yeah. Thank you for bringing this up.
Okay, after all the maps and nice, exciting picture pair, we'll just have text now. Let's go to the next one. And not very exciting. Okay. मेरे को वो remote दे दे. Okay, now yeah. The next one, number 5. Yes. So I'm just going. Just be patient, because some of the things here you will have a lot of questions on. We will come back to it in the discussion so that I can just lay out what is what here. So just going through the timeline since 2007 to now, because I mean previously there were planning groups and other things, but looking at where we are today and where we started. So in 2007, L'avenir de Auroville was nominated by the RA, okay? And there was a mandate issued by the council which had the structure of L'Avenir, the scope of work with roles and responsibility. Document is attached in another file, sorry. And this mandate had also inputs from what we do in terms of environment, what we do in terms of planning, and the main features of the galaxy from Roger. So L'Avenir at that point was an internal organization that was selected and appointed by the RA. And somewhere along the line, within 2 or 3 years, Sauro can maybe give a little more details if there are questions, there was a kind of breakdown of communication between the members and between the working group and the community. Hmm? Yeah, but that's when the governing board stepped in. Oh, already you had problems then? Okay, so the governing board, basically, Doshi came in on the governing board and he was approached to become an advisor for the planning. So the TDC then was appointed by the governing board with a standing order, okay? But the standing order very clearly states, when you look at the standing order 6/2011, it states that the L'Avenir is appointed by the governing board on the recommendation of the working committee based on the members selected by the RA. So basically what it means is that the RA selects the members, the working committee facilitates by saying, okay, these are the selected members, now we recommend it to the governing board, and the governing board is asking the foundation office to appoint them on their behalf. So this goes on, but at some point we did not have really a fantastic relationship between and within and without the TDC. So a subgroup was appointed in 2017 to review the structure, because it was not like the people who were in TDC were incompetent or they were bad-willed, but something was not working. So we said, okay, let's relook at the structure. Maybe there's a problem within the structure of the TDC. So the subgroup then had 3 GMs and RAD, and the RA then approved a new structure. The idea was that TDC was, the members of the TDC were performing 3 different functions. They were each member was wearing 3 hats. They were doing the planning, they were doing the policy, and they were also reviewing how the participation would happen, and they were also taking care of the implementation. So basically, if I would say, they were the legislative, they were the executive, and they were the administrative. And this was creating a bit of problem in terms of having an easy transparency with the community. So the 2017 structure basically said the community has a say in how it's developed, but they would then select the people who would represent them. So the selected members of the TDC would represent the community for planning, but then there would be consultants and professionals who would take up the work based on what was the brief given by the selected members of TDC. TDC was no longer the members who were actively doing the planning, but actually representatives of the community, representing the brief and the requirements of the community. But the TDC that was selected based on the structure did not actually function as per the structure. Somehow, it's not always easy to change something overnight just because you decide to change. So they continue to function in the old way, which was set up even before L'Avenir. It was already there in APDC, it was already there before. A certain thing, you appoint the people and you say, now you just do the work, you know. So the office order that was issued by Mr. Chunkat in 2017 was based on the office order, standing order of 2011. He completely ignored the RA approved restructuring. There was no amendment of the standing order. And I think Carol can maybe explain what happened later if there are questions. Then in 2019, interim members, so the 2017 group of TDC members also slowly started disintegrating. Some interim members were appointed. And then Mr. Chunkat issued a new standing order, which was put in place, but no office order for the interim group that was appointed. Okay? Now, this is kind of strange. There was a new standing order, but no office order. Now, Madam Secretary, when she took office, she issued the office order appointing directly through the foundation office 5 members, which is based on the standing order of 2011, ignoring the standing order of Mr. Chunkat of 2019, where both the standing orders actually say that RA selects the members, working committee recommends, and the governing board appoints. In both the standing orders, this is there. So this is where we are with how it has been working. Now, can I go to the next slide? So there is all this information is there on the internet of how the new structure was come up, go on. And I don't think we have the time to go into it, but if people don't remember, we can have a short presentation another day. Next slide, please. So this is the main thing. What we said is that we cannot have a direct selection of the members by the RA and expect them to take up both the work of being the interface of the community to the planning and also be the planners. Not everybody has the capability to be doing the administration, the planning, and communication. So we said, why not have the interface? The TDC becomes an interface that the resident assembly selects, and the resident assembly also endorses the principles on which we plan, so that you have some kind of framework within which your technical team works. And the interface then works with the technical team, which will be the planning office, to prepare the development priorities, to prepare the DDP, to review the master plan every 25 years. And this technical team has a longer term based on just the office work that they're doing. But they are not deciding which road we do and which factory we build. They are deciding based on a brief. To put it very simply, it's like when you have an architect who you appoint to design your house, he doesn't decide how many bedrooms you should have. He doesn't say, no, you should not have 3 children, please send away 1, because I'm going to build only 2 bedrooms, 1 for you and 1 for the other kid. That's how it is. So you're giving a brief. The community needs to give a brief. Now the brief has to take 3 different things into account. There's a vision. We are not a normal town. There is a vision, there is an aim to the city. And we also have a concept. But the brief is actually taking the vision and the concept and putting it into timelines of short duration, which meets the needs of the community based on the growth, plus keeps the intent and the vision and the concept in mind, so that step by step, incrementally, you're moving towards the goals of the city. And the technical team is getting the brief, which is basically how to integrate the needs present, midterm, and long term into the concept that we have, and build it up with policies, programs, and projects that are then integrated into the DDP. Thank you.
Shall I go?
I think we can move on to the next part, no? The question answers or whatever it is.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. So whoever would like to, yeah.
Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. I'd like to understand, because for me it's remaining still a point of unclarity. I'd like to know under which group or under whose auspices Anupama is working. Because there's the TDC, and then I keep hearing about Anupama, and she's been doing quite a bit of work, I think, on the town plan, supposedly. So is there a contradiction here, or is everybody working together? Could somebody answer that for me?
Francois, this is all Greek to me. I didn't know she was working. So then there must be another parallel universe. So I think whoever is better informed on the town planning that Anupama is doing should stand up and speak about it. I have no clue about this. Honest. Huh?
Wait. Well, no, Suhasini, remain here. I will give the mic.
Anupama has made a city center start in 2007, 2008. So that is...
But Francois is talking about something that happened this week and last week.
that
I
don't
think
know.
that's a timeline he's
That
talking
is
about.
a question to be made to TDC or someone else.
Okay, so only the TDC knows. If
I wanted to correct the timeline.
Yeah, no, there are some, actually you should correct it and you should give me the information because I took some of it from the information you gave. But
Yeah,
most
but,
of the letters written by the working groups don't have dates, sorry to say.
Okay, can you go back to the
Mm.
to the slide?
Which one do you want, sorry?
The table with all the date and event and change. That's okay. Yeah. Then one more question while it appears. I mean. Yeah.
Hi, I don't exactly know who I'm speaking to, but just now he mentioned also that which group, are they together or not? Or is everybody here? Are there members here? Or I feel that this room should be filled with people who are the builders, hands-on knowledge, who have been struggling on the land for so long, the architects, so much creativity in this community. This place should be filled with you people, and you need to work it out. And this presentation is amongst you, because me, I don't remember a thing. It's a blur, and I don't want to be lobbied by anybody in any way particular in my thinking. I believe what you need is trust and fraternity, and you need a whole bunch of people, maybe there are 100, 200, who are working, who are creative, and you need to get together, and you need help to get together, and you need to build. What do I know? I am just a citizen who is not working in architecture and planning. So I'm just sitting here and I'm following, I don't know, I'm being politicized somewhere, and I think you guys need to just get together. Maybe 100 of you, I don't know, the town hall can be filled with creativity and bursting youthful energy. Now I don't know who's speaking, and the other groups are not here, and some people are there, and I don't know who is who, and I hear, and I, like everybody else, and I see again a very old school presentation, which is not very, see, as a citizen, all I need is to be inspired, which I am already in part, but also to be inspired to trust you, all of you, to do it. And then I will see the city grow, and I will be like, oh, they did this, and then I might have an opinion, oh, that's not nice, and somebody say it's nice, that's fine. So, you know, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, your point taken, but I don't completely agree with you because the city is built by the citizens. And I think more informed a society is, the more it is actually able to live in an enlightened society.
But at least there's a wish of expertise being together and collaborating together. And let's build up on that, actually. We are reaching the end of the meeting, so how can we build up into integrating and collaborating in order to have this expertise together?
I seconded this statement by Elisa, because there is by now every meeting on Friday, I guess. Next Friday will be someone, maybe called by the same team, somebody else. But the last 1 month, we have different general meeting called by different group where we had no way to bring the matter together. So that I think is very important, and is the next step. How can we go in that direction? Otherwise, next week we'll have a meeting of TDC. We talk about some other plan, but how we bring it to the same level, that is the key element. The previous question wants something inspiring, so I'm a bit embarrassed because talking of chronology is not so much inspiring. I'm just saying because of the sake of the record, and that maybe can help understand the situation we are in now. 2007, before 2007, there were two groups. There was Our Future, that is Roger office, constituted as a unit under the Auroville Foundation, and there was a development group that later on changed name in Planning and Development Group. And actually, they were not following the same line. So there was a movement called Auroville 2012 to try to give a unified vision, especially foreseeing the 40th anniversary of Auroville in 2008, that could make a big change on planning. At the same time, there was a trend, I mean, from Roger Z, it was a chief architect at the time, to create a system where whatever responsibility were held by him as a chief town planner, a chief architect of Auroville, would be devolved to the resident assembly resident. So that is the mandate of 2007. That more or less is the mandate that still stand now from the resident assembly to L'Avenir in general. There was, since Auroville, so both groups were supposed to close and merge. Our Future was constituted as a unit under the foundation, so there was a need of office order to close the unit and constitute L'Avenir d'Auroville as a unit. That was when the first office order of the Auroville Foundation came into place. So the role of the Auroville Foundation has been there since the beginning, and I'll explain at the end of my question why they're there. 2010, there was another restructuring of TDC, of L'Avenir, was not yet TDC. I avoid to enter into details because by now is history. There were a few months of long debate and discussion within the community. TDC was reconstituted in 2010 with a different organization, but a few months later, the master plan has been published in the Gazette of India in August 2010. And since the master plan foresees that there is a prescribed authority for the implementation of the master plan, and that this prescribed authority can interact even with the outside agency and have some say on the private land. In 2011, the governing board issued a standing order replacing L'Avenir with the Town Development Council. So that how TDC came in effect in 2011. So in 2011, we have the standing order for the reason that is the prescribed authority of the master plan. Yeah. No, I'm no, but that is very important. No, there are other questions, but no, I'm just clarifying this. I can bypass the rest, but since the question is, I bypass all the other elements of chronology, but why there is a standing order? The standing order has been made because of this reason. There has been other change in 2012 made by the resident assembly to the constitution of L'Avenir d'Auroville. And L'Avenir d'Auroville and TDC has been functioning for several years with different mandate, one for the resident assembly and one from the governing board. In 2017, there has been an attempt to create a new structure that define the role of the resident assembly. But this new structure has not been accepted by the governing board. In 2019, they again made a standing order repeating their role into nomination that TDC. So this issue has been brought to the attention of the governing board in several meetings of the working committee. In January 2000, I'm just finished. Okay, no, but that's important. In January 2020, last meeting of the governing board, there was an agreement that the governing board should go for an harmonization of the two mandates of resident assembly and TDC. But it's not there. It's not there.
Hello. Sorry.
Okay, let's, who is the next question?
Sorry. I have the feeling, I am Kirtan, I have the feeling
to be in the book of George Orwell, Barcelona. In this book, he's describing how the anarchists have been slaughtered by Franco, because every morning they were electing their officers, and they were discussing about the past, about the different chapels, and then the troops from Franco were killing them. And we are, for me, in the same situation, that we have a power who doesn't care about anything, about standing order, about office order. They want to do something, and they know that we are going to discuss about the past, when was it, and we are not doing to do anything, because we are only discussing, and they are doing. And they have an agenda. For them, this is totally clear that we are nothing. So they will do what they want, as the Frankists have been killing the anarchists.
Yeah, I just want to second what Hans was saying. Today I'm coming to another meeting, then next week another meeting. I don't know what we are doing here. I really believe that all those who are involved in, in the local area, whatever, especially those people and the technical people, they come together and work out things. I don't want to come another meeting now, and the next group will call, go there. Do I get side or talk for them, or do I come here now, talk for this? I don't know where we're going. I think we need to merge together, work together. Please, try, all of you who are here now presenting. It's a good presentation. You have a lot of knowledge. But can we come together, please?
No, wait. There was Fred. And about the coming together, give inputs, give ideas. Everything is welcome to build up this movement.
Yeah, my head is also spinning a little bit. I think it's very important to give a space and an ear to what has been presented. I think it's very important and will have its effect. But I think the mood of the community is we need a way out of this dilemma. We need from those who facilitate that we don't come to another presentation which is inundating us, but leading into a place where we can meet. And let me just give you one example. Understand that the secretary is meeting with a group of architects. Now, are we going to have another meeting with that group of architects the next week? Then we had 3 meetings. One was presenting TDC. Now we had a presenting of Prasan Suhasini and others. And then they're talking about Helmut, David Nightingale, Omar, and why I also feel the community is inundated with certain things and needs now to find a prescription of where we can meet and where we can present as one voice to the secretary. This is the united wish of the community, and this should not be stretched out, because that would be a tactic to, we are losing the energy. So to those who might organize the next one, you make the call to the DC and say, look, you want to carry the community, you have 1 or 2 members here to answer. You give a call to the other architects who are discussing with the secretary, come and show us. We appreciated what has been given here, but if we have to get, the community has to be given something which unifies us. Otherwise, we are losing our strength.
I almost forgot what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I just want to propose something because it's true meeting, it's a little bit too long. And why not the next time you just take one part of the Crown Road and you do something concrete, then we can see what you want to do because it's not real for us. Then you organize one part, I don't know, from the Solar Kitchen to Arca, I don't know, and you do something concrete, you know, how you want to stop the people, how you want to slow down the people, how you put the cycle path. Just one small example, and it will be more clear for us to understand and maybe to follow your project, because now it's just picture, drawing, it's beautiful, but we want something real and we want to experiment and walk to the path and cycle to the path and to see how it works. We want something concrete. Meeting, I think we are all fed up by meeting. We want something concrete now.
I don't know your name. Veronique. So to have something concrete, you need a budget. For having a budget, you need a proposal. For a proposal, you need a decision. For a decision, you need an agreement. So which way do I go, chicken or the egg? Yeah, but when we do a focus on one part, TDC has to approve the implementation. So to do an implementation, I need to make a design proposal. Forget about TDC right now. I'm saying that your proposal that just go out and do it on the land has to go through several steps. Those steps require the TDC's approval. And to have the TDC's approval, we need to have a collaborative approach that Fred was talking about. And to have a collaborative approach, we need a community that understands the challenges and the needs and the priorities. To say, yes, we get it, maybe it's not enough a cup of tea, but can you guys get together and do something together? To be able to do something together, you need to have a task force. I cannot just walk up to the TDC office tomorrow and say, hey, by the way, I have a good idea on a urban planning level, and I'm qualified, I should be able to do it. They'll say, hey, no, we already have a team. They tell us that we have off-site people working on a 600-page document preparing the detailed development plan for Auroville. So, what's collaboration?
Yeah. I want to propose something actually. See, the thing is that in 2017, there was an effort made to have representatives of the community together with a technical team that creates what it creates. Basically, it creates a framework within which everybody's creativity is welcome. So if David comes with a Crown Ways proposal, which is like an urban design proposal, there is a process by which that is given the go-ahead. Okay, in this stretch, you can experiment with this proposal, with this project, whatever that is. So right now, the way we are, it looks like we as a community do not have a voice at the table. I said that in the beginning as well. We do not have a voice at the table. Somebody comes, something starts happening, and then randomly many people are consulted, but we as a community do not still have a voice at the table saying, this is what we want, and this is what we want the TDC to do. So in order for that to happen, somehow we have to ourselves, in the meantime, organize ourselves so that we have a group that is selected amongst us outside of that framework, saying we represent the community at your table. So when you propose a Crown Road, or you propose this or that, or whatever it is, it's not that, oh, okay, it's in the master plan, therefore we are building it. We are opening the page, we are building this road, then we are building that. That's not how it should function. We as a community say, this is our priority, this is what goes first, this is what we do now. And then, you know, so essentially what I'm proposing is that we have some sort of a group that could be representation of us. You know, I mean, just as an example, when the highway was coming, there was, you know, just a call of hands and say, who wants to work on this? So a group of people came together, and then that was a task force that actually worked with the working groups of Auroville in making sure that we, you know, got rid of of the highway. Similarly here, we want to have, just 2 seconds, we want to have some group that could be a show of hands, could be any which way, but that says, okay, we are the interface to the TDC and we represent the voice of the community. That's my proposal.
So there's a proposal, and it will be nice to have a show of hands at one point on it.
Hi, I just want to quickly say something because I've heard some comments from the crowd that for me are a little bit worrying. Democracy is hard. It is tedious and it's exhausting. And to be a part of a community where we're meant to be like together building things is very difficult. But I think we all have to, at least, if we're going to choose to come and live in Auroville, we have to be ready to do that difficult work. Sometimes they're inundated with information. All right, ask these people to clarify. Sometimes you're unsure about where to go next. Okay, find out. So I think, yeah, it's difficult and it's not so fun all the time, but if we're really gonna own this community and live here like we actually want to, then we have to do the work. And this is the work.
To add to that, I think that what Hans and Savraj brought up is actually there is a large percentage of the community that feels like that. And it is our reality that there is this kind of feeling of what can I do? And I think in response to that, the situation that we are in today needs to be very clear that there is a group, the TDC is sitting over there, and they are going ahead with a certain decision without taking all expertise, ideas into consideration. We have groups like the council or the working committee who can actually come in and say, no, you need to take all voices need to sit at the table. They are not doing this. So it comes to us as a community in these GMs, and it is our responsibility to say, this is what we want. Yes, we don't have the expertise. Yes, we don't know what's going on. I'm not a planner. It's not my forte. But I, as a citizen of Auroville, need to ensure that all voices are heard and they are at the table. And this is our responsibility, as Isa says. And that is the least that we can do. And that's what's asked of these GMs. That's the only thing that's asked.
Yeah. I would like also, there was a proposal, it's already somehow... Yes, sure, absolutely. Once again, it's 6:41, so we extend it a bit more, a few minutes more.
My question is the 15 kilometers an hour something that's already been set, or is it something that can change?
Mohini, why are you asking this question? Just like that, okay.
Yeah, it's on. May I go?
Yes, please.
I wanted to say something similar to what Natasha said. I would like to take up Sauro on what he said about the two groups not being able to come together, each one making their own specific GM. You are, as the working committee, you are representing the citizens of Auroville, let's say just the residents of Auroville. It is your job to marry this present difference of opinion. I think that is the minimum we can ask of you, that everyone who has put so much energy into planning and development since the last so many years has a voice. And can we ask that of you now, that each of you on the working committee ensures this for all of us?
I'm not in the working committee.
I've been told to be very short, so I give my personal answer. I'm personally committed to achieve this result of bringing people together, but I can speak for myself. I can say that we had some conversation in the council, joint conversation in the council working committee, how we can going ahead and forward and to achieve the result. We have not yet the formula, so we have not yet the solution. I'm very happy that there is a wider community participation because it can help in this direction.
Omar, you can go.
Yes, hello. My name was mentioned, so I felt like I have to clarify. The issue, probably everybody knows David and know that David was very involved in several collective processes, the dream catchers and then the dream weavers and the crownways and then the citizen assembly. And there was a call because he has proven to be somebody who can bring people together and be part of a collective process to try to bridge. And in a discussion, David was ready to try. He was very hesitant, ready to try, and he told me, if you help. So me as Omar, the architect coming 2013 to Auroville, I keep wondering why the community of architects is one of the communities of the least collaboration I see in Auroville. I always feel the forces of disagreements and maybe the forces sometimes of some competition are stronger than collaboration. And I see the first group, for example, meeting, disagreeing, and they can reach to something, while the community of architects, you don't see much of this. So I said, let's try. And there is no possibility that we can be sure that the atmosphere and the current conditions would lead to anything. I can only say today I feel some hope because in planning there is always quantitative and qualitative processes. This is maybe could explain why some of you feel some of the presentation is dry. And actually you cannot do planning without both together. It's the 2 feet of planning. So you find somebody like me, David, and other architects are more focused on qualitative, which means you study the street, the experience of the street, the proportion of the street, the relation to the landmark, the proportion of a plaza, how you feel in a space. And then there is the quantitative process, which is all of the needed data, the topography, the water, the statistics, the development, expectation of development. Now, when I see a group with lots of focus on quantitative and other group with lots of focus on qualitative, I feel maybe there is a possibility of meeting and seeing how this would impact this, how would this impact this. I can only say through the next week, we will try to be meeting. I already have a meeting set with Sasani in beginning of the week. Then we see. We don't know if there is any possibility of anything like this, but we can only try. Yeah? Thank you.
We are really out of time. Can we just have a name which is we have right now, Paul?
Yeah, I feel terrible when I come to these meetings. I sit here, I have a knot in my stomach. I don't feel we're actually touching the issue. We're just touching one set of ideas against another set of ideas. I'm sorry, I respect everybody who's spoken, but for me it was a knot in the stomach the whole time. I feel we need to start talking about what we agree upon. I think we need to set up a situation. I request the facilitators to create a moment where people can come together and they can sit and say, I agree. I agree what Auroville can be. We can start on very simple things. But one idea is we sit in a room and there's a bell on the table. All of us have a bell. And someone starts talking. And as soon as someone says something that I don't agree with, I ring the bell and that person stops. But we have to build a consensus upon what we agree. Then we can go to the technical stuff. But before we confront this emotional angst that I feel as an individual, we're just going to go round and round in circles. We need to sit, talk face to face the emotional reality, and find ways we can agree and build trust. And if we don't do that, we're not going to go anywhere.
Paul.
Hans,
No,
you are in
just
the
1 minute.
You are in
I
the
just
list,
wanna,
but
no,
I'm going
sorry,
to
sorry,
let
sorry,
you
Uma,
pass.
sorry. We have come to an agreement. We had the sounding board in 2017 with all the various groups, and we did come to an agreement on the planning principles, and it was published and it was approved. Now, it's that we keep doing the same thing again and
Suhasini,
again.
we're not talking about that. We're not talking about mental ideas. I'm talking about emotions. At the moment, the community is in emotional turmoil. We've avoided a conflict. Why have we avoided a conflict? Because the people who were directly affected by the Crown stood up and said, okay, enough of this conflict. This conflict has been going on for 30 or 40 years. The people on the Crown stepped down and said, look, we don't want this conflict. We're going to clear this road as a sign of goodwill. And it's been done, and we've avoided that conflict. We now need to take the next steps, which is an emotional step, and find where we find common ground today. Between the people, all of us.
Hans, please, you're going to speak double time. I'll just let people speak who have not spoken at all. So Ashwini and Renu, and we can close with that. Is that okay?
I'm sorry, but I really want an answer from the working committee, and mainly Sauro, because I see them in every GM meeting, especially about the Crown, where they know that there is a disapproval from the community when it comes to the Crown. But in spite of that, on 9th September, I get a message from one of the working committee members by saying, you along with your family are invited for a short concentration to mark the starting of the work of the Crown tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., followed with a simple breakfast. So I would like to know, the working committee being here every time, are you going to support us? Is our voice going to be heard, or is this just a drama going to be on?
Yes. I just want to point out that I work in the land board, and recently this whole story about the Crown came up because the secretary said we were going to do acquisition, and then I think she's called architects because she has some massive buildings to do around the jewels of the Crown, etc., etc. There's no acquisition happening. We got an email at the land board from the TDC saying, please buy these few plots that are on the Crown, like as if we're not trying to consolidate land in the city. The 36 acres that haven't been purchased in the city by any land board is because there's issues, and either the family doesn't want to sell or the paperwork is not right, etc., etc. Nobody is deliberately not trying to buy land in the city. That is the main focus. What I don't understand is why the TDC now is asking us to do that, and then adding insult to injury, saying some people are happy for the Crown to go through. Are we mad? Do you know if we build a road on land that we don't own, do you know what's going that land will never be able to purchase because it'll go up. That landowner, of course, says build your Crown. And the TDC seems so at a loss that they're sending us emails like that. So while I kind of agree with the gentleman over there, while we're all discussing and trying to be community-minded, the TDC is just moving along. Now I hear horrifiedly, because obviously I didn't get that email, that we should come and concentrate for the opening. This is just not on. This is not okay. And I think if we're going to do that representative group, I'd like to see a show of hands in this meeting already, and we can get endorsement from the working committee that this is a task force that is moving ahead, because nothing else is happening. So raise your hand if you're ready to be part of that task force.
Okay, how many speakers are there still? Uma?
Last, Charlie is speaking. She's last.
Thank you.
Since I'm on the working committee, one of the other members who's here, not just Sauro, I wanted to try to answer Ashwini's question. The invitation that you received was not from the working committee. It might have been someone who is also a member of the working committee, but it was not an invitation from the working committee. That's one clarification. The other clarification is that when you say that the working committee has been present at all of these GMs, I would like to say that some members of the working committee have been present at each meeting. So, but the reality is that we're not here as the working committee. We're here as individuals who are also on the working committee. And our reasons for being here are our reasons, and they're not necessarily the same. So it can't be expected or implied that if there are some members here, that we are here as the group officially.
Okay, thanks everyone. I think it's really time for all of us to wrap up and get home or wherever we want to go before it starts pouring. Or it might not, maybe it's patient with us. We've just been chatting here, the three of us, of what we've heard that could be possible, and I want to pick up one is yours, Reno, that there are concrete, two ideas that call for concrete manifestation if they want to happen as a next step. So one is this idea of creating a task force that, and you know, names can be found and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm going to ask in a second. But this task force would have the purpose right now to really represent the energy that is alive in the community. And also I heard planning expertise, and to say to the TDC, we want to work with you together. We want to bring our expertise, and we want to make sure that this interface to the client, to the community that lives and builds in the city, is that we can work it out together. So there's this interface team. Can we see a show of hands? And this is, you're not signing up on a job description. The show, if you raise your hand now, it's basically, I'm interested to sit together and explore whether I want to put energy in this. But right now, I'm interested to go one next step. It's not even saying I want to be on that interface team. Who here has right now motivation is into being part of that interface team? Can we have, can somebody take names? Yes, but okay, yeah. Are you guys taking names, Lata? Because it was kind of your proposal, so I'm looking at you guys. Yes, darling.
What Lata was saying is that we need a task force, like we had for the highway, of people with capability and people who will follow through. Not an interface team to represent only the community to the TDC, but actually do the professional work of sitting with the TDC and saying, this is the planning thing, this is the urban design thing, and this is the not religious, spiritual thing, okay? Sorry. So we are talking about a task force that will actually enable to bring the planning element into the TDC, because Omar and others are talking about bringing urban design into the program. We are not talking about bringing urban design or the spiritual angle of the master.
What do you need from this room in order to go ahead with this?
We need a task force of people who can actually work on the planning level with the TDC.
Are there people in this room already?
Yes, who? On the ground.
Who, Suhasini, who?
People who are familiar with the green work, like Paul, water, like Prashant, and others. I mean, we need people with expertise of all these areas, know the land, know the challenges, know the thing, to say we'll be part. Lata, can you continue?
No, I really want to go practical here right now. I want, if we don't need anything from this room right now, then let's not talk about it.
What I meant was not necessarily just a planning group or anything like that. What I meant was some people here who can say, this person I trust to be my representative on this group, or I want to be in this group representing the community. So basically what I'm saying is that you don't have to think whether can I plan or do I have an expertise. The fact that you are part of the community, you can volunteer to be on this group. That's what I proposed.
Okay, but I'm still asking before people raise a hand. Lata, Prashant, and Suhasini, are you driving this? Can people write to you if they are willing to stand up for this? Because otherwise, I'm not going to ask for names if there is nobody here and says, I'm an anchor and you can write to me and I will invite you all for a first meeting. Because this we've done 150 times over. So Lata, Prashant, Suhasini is gone? No, behind me. Are you willing to kickstart this when people raise their hands here now? No.
No, Paul's line is we are coming to it.
Yes.
We are coming to it.
So this is not going anywhere from me right now in the energy. The second thing was that Paul's suggestion for opening a space for an emotional healing and connection. Elisa and I and Uma are willing to explore that, whether we could open a space for that. It's no promise. It's no promise. I don't want to do that yet. Because ooh.
No, in the pre-design of it, let us sit first. Let us sit.
Because
and you can.
No, this is exactly because what Hans is doing right now. I don't want to open it. Paul said, "Can the facilitators open a space?" I checked in. There is a seat. We want to sit with Paul first, and then if there's a need for more energy, we'll reach out. But right now, I would just like to respect that there was a spark and that we can follow up on that. It's not going to be exclusive, yeah? So if this happens, there will be a call for what is needed. But let's just keep it within the energy here right now. So let's take that on. My email is Elvira@Auroville, Elisa@Auroville, Uma@Auroville. We can put it on the meeting report or wherever. So do write to us, reach out. But I personally don't have the energy right now to take names and then to get people on. I'm sorry. All I can commit is to explore this as the four of us. Okay? Thank you.
Elvira,
yes.
I would just like to try something about the first point of the task force, the proposal of having a task force, because we were hearing a lot of wish of collaboration, of expertise, and maybe enlarge with more members of the community. So I would just like to have a show of hands if this idea of having a task force with some planning persons, and we will see how it will be constituted, but would that make sense that this task force will approach the TDC for collaboration? I would just like to have a show of hands just on the idea, not about joining. Yeah. So there is some support, and there was a request towards the working committee to somehow have. Tell me.
It is a beautiful proposal, but it won't work because the TDC at this present moment thinks that they don't need community approval for the work they are doing, and they are supported by the secretary in that. And that is the problem we are facing. If you want to do this, you need a decision of the Resident Assembly to appoint this task group. It cannot just be a show of hands of good-willing people.
Okay, I would like everybody to calm down because I'm going to just... Navros, I'm one of the people, like many of you in this room, who've been through these cycles many times. And the thing is, if I don't, personally, I can give 10 more minutes to this meeting, but not if we formulate sentences that say, we should. I'm only going to let people speak who say, I intend to do something, and do others want to join me, write me an email. I'm sorry, I'm personally very, very tired of the we shoulds and the community should and the people should. So does anybody here have the energy right now, the intention to start an action, no matter what, invite people to join you, give your phone number or email address, and then let's close the meeting. Navros, you have an intention.
I have the intention of moving the court to ensure that this illegal TDC does not damage Auroville anymore.
So Navros's email and phone number are in the phone book. And people who feel called to go down that way, please get in touch with him, yeah, and see if that goes somewhere. Anybody else feels like doing something and inviting people on here right now, otherwise we'll close.
I would like to hug everybody and say I love you.
So your name is? Okay, so here free hugs and love you. I think that's very needed. Is it only today or does he offer that? Anytime, okay? You see her on the road, you say, now I need a hug and I love you. Thank you.
I heard several times Shelley and Sauro express some difficulties they are facing at the working committee. Maybe we should, sorry, I reformulate. Do you need some help from the area, Shelley and Sauro?
There's a question whether the working committee, it sounds like you guys maybe need help. There is an assumption. Do you need help from the RA? Do you? Yes, he says always, very diplomatic. I don't know if Charlie is still here. You want to speak to this? Any answer to this? I don't want to push this down your throat literally, but
Honestly, I don't know how to answer that question. Partly because, as we all know, when we talk about the community or the RA, who is that, and what we're actually talking about groups of people. And so to say, yes, we need help from the RA as a whole body, I don't know what to say to that, honestly. And I'm not trying to avoid the question or to step away, but I honestly don't know what the answer is. I mean, yes, we have struggles within the group as a group. That's clear. But what the RA can do about that, I really don't know. I don't know what we can do. I mean, we're trying within our group to work through things, to confront things, sometimes to balance each other in whatever way we can and what we feel is needed. But from the RA, I don't know. But thank you for asking.
So does anybody have, about the working committee question, is there any intention? I really don't want talk on a meta level, it's too late for that. Do you have a suggestion, Fred, something practical that you can lead?
I think when you accept to be in one of these bodies, council or working committee, you leave your preferences behind. This is part of the representative job you take. And if you have members in those bodies which are strongly not only representing but actively promoting one particular line, then they're actually disqualifying themselves from their job. And I think this could be as a statement sent to the working committee. I don't know about the council.
So Fred, you're suggesting to send a statement saying this as an email. Yeah. Anything else right now, or should we, is that something concrete?
I would really like all those who want to really focus on getting over this 30, 40, 50-year divide. That's what Paul was talking about, that whoever wants to put our energies into finding some way out, finding the bridges, I would like that to happen collectively. Though I hear what you ladies are saying, that you want to talk first, but it has to come out because this is what we are collectively suffering. We are suffering. You know, it is such a huge suffering. You know, this divide. It's our Auroville divide. I cannot believe it, that in 50 years that we have such a divide, and the divide is breaking the working committee, and it's impasse, and we cannot come together about a plan that can integrate us all. So this is why we have to acknowledge, that's what Paul was trying to say, that we have to get over this divide. It's gone too far. So that's what is the issue, and that's what I feel that I would like that there be something that whoever comes into that room, the aim is to see how do we get over this divide. So that's what I would like.
Thank you, Mita. Lata's last, and then we wrap up.
This is in response to what Shali said. I mean, RA expresses its will through a decision-making process. So if the working committee can call an RA decision-making process, that would help us in on this issue, either of the working committee or the TDC. Both of these need some sort of resolution. That would help. Because right now, you know, if we want to initiate a decision-making process, it's a long, drawn-out process. But if one of the working groups is able to say, well, hey, this is not working and this is not working and we need a decision from the RA, it's possible. So when Claire is saying, can the RA help, I would say that's how the RA is able to help, by making a decision and having our working groups accountable to that decision.
I hear Lata ask, is it realistic that the working committee calls for an emergency residence assembly meeting, decision-making? I see Saura already shake his head. Is it realistic? Is it worth it to ask the working committee to call an emergency? Okay. Okay, Renu, okay. No, sorry, I have clarity. There was a question, it's about residence assembly decision-making processes. The working committee says right now, it's not so the right moment to ask the working committee. Yes. No, the working committee can call an emergency. Yeah, that's what I hear, Guy. Okay, so but then it's back to what Renu was saying.
I have doubt about this story of the task force because, I mean, I can see that instead of creating one group, we are going to a proliferation of groups. There might be time where the resident assembly decision has to be taken, but it's not yet the time. And what is happening, I totally resonate with Paul, is the only recipe to go ahead, because the level of emotion and militancy that we have these days inside the community, inside the working group is so strong that we don't, and the differences are so minimal. The differences are so minimal when we talk of planning. But there is such an emotional distance and a strong distance. We have to work on that level. That's why I say I feel difficult at the moment to engage. And that also affects our work with the working committee. I come here as a person every time. I'm clear with that. Don't ask me to speak about on behalf of the working committee. I can guess there are other members of the working committee who would not agree on this. Let's try to create a more ground collaborative, and then we can go for solutions that involve the array. But it's not just by going to one-shot the division. And I would say, okay, I was interrupted, I understand, because it was very boring, my comment, but it was aimed to arrive at the last point of whether this is legal or not. I mean, there is a lot of people who, after the last meeting, we got a lot of mail of people that say the working committee should support the secretary in nominating TDC. So that's not the time at this moment to go for this type of situation. We have to go beyond this emotional divide, because it's emotional, because the distance is very minimal. Also, there are problems in the situation, but it's we are fighting on something where there is not so much difference. So we have to work on that.
Okay, so the answer to the working committee, what I hear, the answer to your question, Claire, is the working committee also needs help to heal emotionally before anything else can happen. So that's, for me, the outcome of this meeting, is that this will go forward and we'll see how. And please feel free to write me, Uma, or Elisa, or I don't know, Paul? No, if you wanna be involved in this some way, and we'll see where this goes. Yeah, so. Yes, please. I'm done for today.
So I would like to right now take the jacket off from facilitation and three of us, which were holding it. It was my personal journey to walk into the space, especially when I was anchoring last GM, and many of you were very bad. No, let me complete. And it took me a while when I heard, got the call from Elisa, that would you join, that I was a bit shocked. And I stood up saying, yes, I will. We must bridge. There is a oneness in us. We must bridge, and it has to start with my space. I will do my best. I will. And it's, as Paul says, these journeys are not only outside. For me, journey begin inside. Can we bridge something, please? What is this divide? We have expertise. Can we work together? Can we honor each other? These are the bridges we have to make. We don't have to make one more group. Just go home and think about it. What are we doing? We all agree. If it means to be quiet, I'm very happy that you rang the bell on that moment. I shall shut up. But that's what I really felt that I wanted to tell that this love has to be from all of us to all of us. And as Fakira is generously offering it, that I want to give a hug. Let's bridge.
So let's have a moment of silence together to close this meeting. Thank you, everyone.